Okay, so my name is Fran Ilich, and I'm living now in New York City, but before that I was living for a long time in Mexico City. And in 2005, um, the Zapatista army launched the Sixth Declaration of the Lacandon Jungle. And at that time, I started to run a server to create like a safer workaround for political projects. No, we had just suffered some kind of censorship, and were kicked out of a server called Bluehost in the U.S. This is a server that it's in Utah. It's probably run by Mormons. I don't know. But the thing is, I was taking this course called Ecological Economy, and it really changed my life. On the one side, because coming from Mexico, I mean, speaking about money in activist circles, it's kind of forbidden. It's like talking about something dirty. You never discuss money. You are always ready to pay any price, and that led to a lot of awful decisions, lots of times. And so I wanted to do this server in such a way that it works within an economical, rational point of view, always putting the good money with the good money and never mixing it with the bad money. So kind of like running a market economy, but also being kind of ecological. Now, what do I mean by that? Not really anything too ecological, but because at the beginning we didn't have anything. What we were distributing or working with was random access memory, hard drives, bandwidth. But this was already a kind of experiment in saying how much resources different collectives and individuals could have access to. No, and when somebody ate all their resources, we put like a stop on their accounts, unless of course we had like a surplus, no, of access. And this really made us very critical about the ongoing open content kind of production that was going on, because there was this big fad about creative commons and this and that. But I think it was in a, maybe, I don't know if in a counterproductive way, but in a way that was very disrespectful to real issues in intellectual property, because in the end you were just talking about MP3s and cultural production, and not really like DNA or generic medicine, etc., etc. And so yeah, that's more or less the framework where this bank starts. This is, I decided to make Spacebank, which is an economical body that will kind of make the economical regime for a political space called Possible Worlds. That's a server, and that's it. Both bodies become independent and autonomous from each other. The political is not going to control the economical, and for the first time, the economical is going to say to the political, don't make any anti-economic decisions. And that's how this experiment started. Yeah, I have to say that I'm mainly running the bank myself. I'm the only banker right now. That's kind of something that I've been trying to change. I'm always looking for creative bankers, and I've found a couple of them. Mainly there's like a woman, an Indian American woman, who is doing a lot of research in Havala networks. Her name is Megha Ralapati, and I found one or two other creative bankers that I would work on with. But the thing with Spacebank is that it's really a bank, and it's not an artistic project. And so you have lots of operations every day. You have customers, and the funny part is that this sometimes scares away bankers. Well, one of the things with the bank is that although it has a web page and you could maybe stumble into it, I don't know exactly how. We are like kind of concerned or of who joins, like, because we don't know who could get into the network. And this is an informal bank that has been going on for 7 years now. And so financial intelligence agencies are really worried about money, because money, it seems, it's where the power is. So in that sense, we are very concerned, or I am very concerned. I think there was a customer last year that approached after the Occupy Wall Street movement became very big. And there was this article on the Huffington Post about Spacebank. And a lot of people started to write to open accounts, and we actually didn't know who are these people. And we either had like to choose if to let them in, and take the risk of being exposed to who knows who for just $5, or if it's important to let them in so that they see the model and can imagine another economy. Because one of the things that Occupy Wall Street did at the very beginning is completely ignore any kind of real economical and financial thing, and just focusing on the very traditional symbolical occupations, in this case of Wall Street, which actually didn't happen in Wall Street, but a couple of blocks from Wall Street. So that makes it even more symbolic. And I think that's dangerous, because at a certain moment, media has this so powerful effect that it can create like the mirage or the mirror game and make you think that you're actually changing something, and you can become a victim of your own reflection in the mirror. And I would really wanted to do an emphasis on like the actual pennies, even if they're just pennies. And so, we let in most of the people that approach us at the moment. It was really 2 or 3, no? That's actually also an important thing, that even though in the media you have this symbolic representation and a lot of people are talking and everyone's interested, in reality, there are maybe 2 or 3 people that maybe they put $20 or $100, but definitely not 200, no? One of the, I would say, limitations in a good and bad way of Spacebank is the fact that it started as part of a support network. No, it's a bank to run the economy of a virtual community, a server, no? And in that sense, this server also was part of the Otra Campaña Zapatista. And so we haven't been very successful in going beyond the mindset of the support network. And I think that's actually kind of good, because we're able to advance materially things, as opposed to having a super broad and open economy where money is like so dispersed and flowing all over that you don't manage to create kind of solid pieces of something, But on the other side, the way it operates is that it has a stock exchange that at the moment is called the Brooklyn Stock Exchange, where we issue or announce initiatives that could become projects. So let's say someone says, let's do a magazine, and they say we want to issue 1,000 shares, each worth a certain amount of digital material sunflowers. If people actually buy them, it means the market or society is saying, yes, we need that. And so they are taking the risk, and not Spacebank per se, because Spacebank doesn't really have the capacity to do that, or the will, because it has a mandate, and the mandate is to sustain the economical equilibrium of the server. Otherwise, if it goes bankrupt, and it has to maintain the balance, right? And in that sense, we had a lot of inner criticism from me, myself, and from other people, because we do run a kind of market socialism in that sense, which I think it's one of the reasons why we managed to survive already for 7 years. Sometimes even shooting projects that we loved so much. Like we started a kind of radio station, an online radio station called Radio Latina, where there were maybe 15 collectives from around the world doing content. But at a certain point, the expenses could not be met, and also not all the collectives were meeting their obligations, or not their obligations of uploading, and so of course nobody wants to see the project dead. But on the other side, it's not making sense economically, So at a certain point you say, okay, people can trade shares, move them, sell them, but and revive it, or we can just let it go, And so, but yes, on the other side, there is a real focus on Zapatista, solidarity agriculture production, because I think you have to have, I don't want to say friends, but people you look up to, and they have consistently managed for the last almost, I would say, 18 years, I think, they have managed to to let know people that they're there, that they're not changing, that, you know, and they produce something. And it's important to create this kind of relation and pact and social pact or social contract with someone over time. No? So in that sense, we are looking also for other bodies, no? And I don't know which are they. At a certain point, we thought, you know, the World Social Forum, but then the World Social Forum, it's a body that doesn't allow armed movements to interface with them, which kind of like poses the question, who do you guys really want to talk to, you know, because the Zapatistas are a group which is armed, you know, and they had to arm themselves because otherwise they would just be poor. And they actually wouldn't afford to go to the World Social Forum in Brazil or in India or anywhere. So you kind of think, you know, like, and what have other bodies that were not armed do, you know? So, and I'm not saying that we are pro-violence, no, not at all, but we don't want to be limited for people that have other interests, no? Or this body sometimes have said, you know, we do talk with people who are we don't talk to people who are part of political parties, but at the same time, they talk to the electoral left, who make terrible things sometimes, but then when you ask them, you know, this happens with this candidate or this bureaucrat, then they say, you know what, that was their personal life and not like their political life, you know, and so it's something that we had to cut, you know, at a certain point and say, you know what, I mean, I think they're doing amazing work, but you know, it's not that different in a way from what the normal business is, no? So yeah, the idea behind this project, of course, is to maintain an autonomy, an economical autonomy and independence to be able to do whatever the virtual community needs without having to compromise the integrity, no? Because there are so many changes in the art world or in the cultural world or in government that sometimes they would give you funding depending on what you do or not do, right? So by having our own economy, we can stay away from that. That, of course, is good and bad, no? It's good because you do things. It's bad because you don't have necessarily that much access to a lot of cash, which doesn't mean that individually some of us can apply for funding. Like I'm here in the Museums Quartier, right? And so there's money coming in, but there's also money going out. In the end, I would say, you know, it balances the thing, you know, because of course the money goes out immediately, especially coming so far, etc., etc. But anyhow, the thing is, when we started designing the digital material sunflower, which I think it was in the winter of 2009, in December of 2009. I think I was reading about the Chinese yuan, you know, and the Cultural Revolution. I'm kind of like a fan of the Chinese Cultural Revolution, you know, and I was thinking of all the similarities that are behind the traditional or classical Maoism from the 60s and 70s and the digital Maoism that Jaron Lanier describes the Web 2.0 as digital Maoism. You know, everyone like talking or working to feed the machine. You know, where like the machine is Google, iTunes, Facebook, Amazon, etc. Right? So labor in digital labor really it's worthless. You know, you have thousands of blogs, etc., that are completely worthless except for Facebook or things like this, which can extract the surplus, right? And within normal Chinese Maoism, labor also was kind of worthless because the output of the masses, so to say, was going to feed the machine of society as a whole, the collectivity instead of individuals, right? And this, for normal Western thought, can seem brutal, right? So, but what we have there is a difference of values. You know, you cannot impose a value to everyone else, and of course it becomes more complex because different peoples in different societies have different opinions, right? And so I was really reading about the Chinese yuan and how it was designed back then in the 70s, so that to peg it to the rice. If you're working and have access to rice, eventually you will have your own scientists and your own artists, and you will have rice. and these rights will be able to feed them. And over time, you will be able to do something really amazing. But what they did is, they said labor is not going to have much of a value, and so that's probably why now in the United States this is considered a weapon, because of what's going on in the US, that labor is super expensive and it doesn't achieve too much because it has become inefficient, both by like the capacity of the virtualization of labor or machines that are super fast, and both because people have become lazy over time, they have become bad workers. And so I was thinking of that, and I thought, that's great. The yuan is so amazing, So what kind of values does our currency has to have? Okay, if I think of the Mexican peso it's pegged more or less pegged, because it's a floating currency, to the US dollar, more or less 12.5 to the dollar, But this is a currency that shows you the relation of oil in the United States and exports and etc., right? It's a cheap currency. It's a cheap currency, but not because it's worthless. That doesn't really mean anything. Maybe it's a completely different relation. And the dollar, it's a currency that it's so genius, that they're able to conquer the world, just because in reality it's pegged to their capacity of military action and deployment all through the world. So you're somehow forced to use the dollar because it's kind of decentralized in a way. You can use it for crime, you can use it for oil, you can use it for everything. Really think about it. If you try to use the Croatian kuna, it's really not going to work, And so I thought, okay, what kind of values do we want? And I thought, okay, we are writers, most of us. We are into digital narrative. And of course, in Mexico, the writers are kind of pegged to the state. They don't write about certain things. The literature, it's not that different from the European, even though in the last 6 years, there are 60,000 dead people, But people aren't really writing about violence, or they're more writing about abstract things, So I thought we have to unpeg from that relation, We have to detach. And who do we trust? And what do we need? And I thought, okay, the Zapatistas, they have the coffee, they have the corn, And so, yeah, they seem to have the right values. So we should try. We don't have the Maoist rise, right? But maybe we can start creating a social pact, and maybe we can see what can we give to them as writers. Maybe nothing, because after the Cuban Revolution, Fidel Castro and everyone find out that the intellectuals don't really give that much, They have their own agenda, their own liberal Western agenda that goes for like the idea of human rights that was born in France, which is like probably one of the most imperialist and brutal countries ever, right? And so thinking about that, I thought, what can we give to the Zapatistas that they need? They don't need like to have an education where they're told that they don't exist, or that the Indians are dead, or that anything of that. So I thought, okay, they need money. They need money to buy our things, Which doesn't mean that we're able to really give them any kind of symbolic money. No, we're like so little in relation to them. But it was a beginning, This relation. So it was digital labor, narrative media, and solidarity agriculture, right? And the thing with digital labor was, by creating a relation with the algorithms of Google, we would know how Google was valuing us, And so I can tell you that when we issued the currency, we had been running AdSense, Google AdSense, for 12 months. And they were valuing the work of, I think, 11 websites and probably 50 persons or more, I think more, at $17.20 per year. And I thought, this is our price. And so many people were offended, because when we distributed $17.20 by 11 enterprises, they were like, no way, we need to buy a car, we need to eat. And that kind of shows you like your contribution to society, how much really the violence against the agriculture or the rural world is from people in city who really think they're contributing something, when probably they're just eating resources, So, okay, by using Google, what we're able to do is have people see a metric, an external metric that wasn't being done by me, so they would know transparently how much they're producing. So then Spacebank, through the stock exchange, the Brooklyn Stock Exchange, would say, it would become kind of like a broker house or a bank saying, we value your contribution at this much, And so meaning, when somebody in a cooperative newspaper was collaborating with a text, this person would get 1 share from this cooperative, and then this person would decide if they want to trade it for something else. And Spacebank would always honor this share, and could sell it to someone else who would either bring fresh money from outside to the network or would want to trade it for another share. And all this, and the people having shares could vote on the future of each independent, separate cooperative, And so I guess the important thing of this experiment is to try and create other forms of relation within people by having a small, cheap currency, a small, cheap currency that allows you to transfer less money than 1 cent, to some project that you want, to be able to fund another culture, other forms of thinking that don't go so much where the mainstream is going. And I mean, I do think that even though we use a lot of the tools of the corporations, I mean, that's really something difficult. By using the tools of the corporation, you're just reaffirming the status quo and the establishment, right? This motto of like, put your money where your mouth is or something, and you start to see how really the people who say they're against something, they're really not. They're making these things stronger. When something new is monetized, like in this case, the people feeding the machine of the Web 2.0, then of course you have a booming industry, because something that didn't exist, or something that you can extract now from an industry, you can sell it to somewhere else without like a middleman, so to say, right?